Newsflash, independence stifles burnout recovery. I know that might not make any sense. Normally, we think of independence as a strength, a virtue, and in many ways it is. But for too many smart, successful, high achieving women, independence, it's also their downfall. It contributes to burnout and it keeps them stuck there in place. So in this video, you're going to learn why that's the case, why going it alone actually makes burnout harder to resolve and pushes you further away from that healthy life and even the career success that you want. You're going to learn why it's so hard to ask for help. And surprise, it's not just you who feels that way. And by the end, you'll be able to make a grounded, informed decision about whether getting some kind of support is the best next step for you. Now, just to be 100% transparent, I am a burnout recovery coach. My name is Jennifer Costanza. I specialize in supporting career-driven women because of my own experience with burnout as an Ivy League PhD and a former sociology professor. And so I'm also going to be sharing with you in this video some of those tidbits about how I support my own clients with overcoming burnout and also what I do to prevent myself from falling back into burnout again. So with all of that said, let's get into it. So the first thing that I want to let you know is that it's perfectly normal to think that you can heal burnout alone and also to be independent and to want to do it alone. And there's a lot of reasons for this, and I'll just bring a few of them to light. So first, if you are great at solving problems, burnout might just feel like another problem to solve. And if you're independent, like me, if you've got that independent streak, then you're probably not so keen on asking for help. And it might even feel like admitting defeat or failure to do so, right? Now, a second reason that you might not want to ask for help is that it's actually hard to ask for help or accept help if you're working in an environment where burnout is not taken seriously or it's not spoken about openly by your company's leadership or your coworkers. If nobody's talking about it, you might just be saying to yourself, okay, what I'm feeling, it's not really that bad. It must not be that bad if nobody else is having this problem. And the other issue is that your company culture or leadership may have somehow convinced you that you should be able to handle things, right? You should be able to handle things without their support or without any support rather. And that needing support makes you weak or unfit. And this could especially be the case if your company is also investing in so-called workplace wellness seminars, right? Well, here's what I want you to know. Burnout is epidemic in the United States, especially among women, even worse among women. Many of your colleagues, they do feel the way that you do. I would really caution you against making assumptions about what's going on with other people, even people who are close coworkers, because we actually really never know what's going on in their lives, what they are facing outside of their work environment. We just don't know. The other thing is that workplaces are admittedly, they are falling short. Even when they're trying to make things better for their employees. I mean, workplace wellness initiatives, overall, they tend to be really ineffective. They're not really giving us what we need in order to better take care of ourselves, in order to have better work-life balance. This is all just to say it's completely normal that given all of this going around in the context of your life, that you would want to do things on your own. Now, here's what I want you to know about asking for help. It does not mean you failed. Actually, it's quite the opposite. It's an incredible sign of strength and leadership when you can have the self-awareness to ask for help. And let me expand upon this issue because I think this is actually really, really important for us to acknowledge as women who really value our career and want to make an impact in our career and even in our communities as well. A woman who is exhausted, who's triggered by the smallest stressors, and who's overwhelmed with life, she cannot effectively lead others because She's not currently leading herself. Once you get to that level of burnout where you are just totally spent and drained and crispy, you've essentially created your own glass ceiling, right? The best leaders, on the other hand, they act from curiosity, they act from clarity and courage, not fear. They know when to delegate, they know when to seek guidance, and they know how to create the right kinds of support around themselves, both at work and in their personal lives. So, being able to admit when you actually can't do things alone is a core skill, and it's a strength, not a weakness. Developing that self-awareness to honestly assess when you need support for your own well-being and stepping outside of your comfort zone to seek that support, that's how you put yourself on the path to becoming a stronger leader and ending burnout in the process. So, the first step to ending burnout in your life is honestly, it's just asking for support. Reaching out, whether it's to a doctor, to a therapist, or to a coach like me, but reaching out to somebody who's in a position to be able to support you with burnout recovery. And like I said, I feel like this is a really strong act of self-leadership. And it's one that, for me, I help my clients build upon when we work together. So let me give you an example of how you build on that first initial act of self-leadership. Well, first, I help them prioritize foundational self-care so they can show up fully fueled every day because, let's face it, you can't lead others when you're tired and you're foggy. I hope I don't have to convince you of that. I think that you already know that. I know that from my own experience. The other thing that I teach my clients is how to regulate their nervous system so that they can respond thoughtfully to problems instead of just reacting from impulse, which is something that if you have been burnt out living in survival mode, that's probably been your modus operandi, just reacting, putting out fires all day long. And when we're doing that, it's hard for us to make clear decisions when we're under pressure. And we want to be able to do that. We want to be able to make clear decisions under pressure. We want to be able to communicate more effectively with whomever you are working with, team, colleagues, students, whomever that is. You can't lead others when you are constantly in crisis mode, putting out fires. So we need to learn how to respond to stress thoughtfully and regulate our nervous system. Now, one other thing that I help my clients with is really becoming super intentional with their time, their energy, and their attention, and setting boundaries to protect those things. I call those your most precious resources, really, your time, your energy, and your attention. Now, here's the thing is that other people are going to essentially treat you according to how you treat yourself. So if you don't have any boundaries, they're not just going to create boundaries for you. When you set boundaries to protect those resources and you uphold them, other people are going to take notice. And through your actions, you're going to be modeling what strong and effective leadership looks like. Okay, so this might sound a little controversial to some of you, but I'm just going to say it. Always doing things on your own, being that strong, independent woman, it's also what can fuel burnout. It's kind of like a double-edged sword, right? It's like your independence, your ability to hustle, your wit, it got you really, really far in life and in your career. But it also came with side effects, at least if you're listening to me here this far. And those side effects are exhaustion, they're overwhelm, and it's taxing your nervous system. So let's just get honest and consider for a moment, how long have you been carrying the weight of everything all by yourself? And seriously, I want you to pause this video and get out a pen and paper. And I want you to try out making a list of all the things that you do on your own or that you've ever done or tried to fix on your own. I'll pause and wait for you to do that. Okay. Now, if you are like any of the women that I have worked with, that is a darn long list and it's exhausting and it's made you exhausted. Because let's think about it. For months or years, you've probably been pushing past your capacity, even when your body is begging you to slow down and rest. You've been saying yes to just one more project or one more thing because no one else will do it right. Am I right? How many of us are afraid of, letting other people do stuff because it's not going to be done the way that we want it done? It won't be perfect. And the other thing is that you've probably been doing is taking on, just in general, taking on more than you can handle. And then at the same time, beating yourself up when you can't do it all perfectly. So all of this is just to say that if this is what you've been doing, no wonder that you're tired. It would be normal. I would be surprised if you weren't tired. Right now, you don't need to push harder. You don't need to hustle more, and you definitely don't need to do more research around what you should or should not be doing to recover from burnout, or how to do it the right way versus the wrong way. What you really need, let's be honest, is support and just a whole new approach. Because here's the truth. Permanent burnout recovery requires that you let go of the fear that's leading you to overfunction, to overwork, and to overthink everything. And it also requires that you develop habits that allow you to refuel, to recover, and to ask for help when you need it. So, real quick, here's how I help my clients do this work, and you can think about how you might put this into practice in your own life. First, everything begins with awareness. I heard the other day, self-awareness, according to Harvard, is the number one skill of the best leaders in the world. And I thought that was really interesting because this is the thing that I am always preaching is that it's just so important that we be aware of our patterns, our problems, whatever. If we want to change anything, we have to do that first step of awareness. And what I do with my clients is that I'll give them some structured reflection exercises so they can start to recognize when pushing harder and trying to fix things on their own at work or even in their personal life is actually costing them energy and holding them back. We really have to become really aware of where our energy is going. Now, after we build awareness, the next thing that'll come is action. And what I'll do is I'll help my clients retrain themselves to pause when they notice they're taking on or tempted to take on too much, to assess their current capacity, like what can they realistically take on right now, and to choose differently or choose intentionally at the very least. So that might look like delegating some tasks to conserve energy, or saying no to an ask or an opportunity, even though you're really tempted to say yes or to take it. And also being intentional about pausing to refuel when we need to, whether that is refueling physically or refueling mentally or even refueling emotionally or spiritually, having fun. I love coaching my clients through this work, and I'll usually share some somatic and mindset exercises to help them tune into what their body and mind truly need in that moment and to take courageous action and let go of that guilt and that fear that sometimes pops up when you're starting to choose your well-being over doing more or doing it all on your own. And honestly, this approach, it is harder than just going to yoga class a couple times a week or ending the day with a glass of wine to unwind. It is a more challenging approach to burnout recovery, but it is also the approach that actually works and works not just in the moment, but for the long term. Okay, so one last thing that I want to share with you about being independent and going it alone is that when you do that, honestly, you're almost always taking the long road to burnout recovery. And I tell you this from personal experience. Recovery from burnout does not happen overnight. Granted, it's a process. It usually takes months, sometimes longer, and it can include a bit of trial and error Even when you're working with a coach or a therapist or some other kind of support, I know if you are watching this that you are smart and you are capable. And I am sure that you could figure things out on your own eventually. But when you take that approach with no plan and no support, the recovery process, honestly, it can turn into years. So I want you to think for yourself for a moment, how long have you been feeling exhausted and overwhelmed and burnt out? And how many solutions have you already tried? My guess is that you've already spent months or even years trying to get more sleep, set boundaries, prioritize self care, eat better, take more vacations, figure out if you need a career change, right? You've already done all of that, and yet here you are. One commonality I've observed in myself, in my clients, and in the countless women that I've spoken to or spoken with about their burnout experience is this, that they have been cycling in and out of burnout for years, and even in most cases have come to see that as normal. I don't believe that that is normal, or at least I don't believe it's acceptable. Let me say that. In my case, I fell into burnout repeatedly during my PhD program in grad school. You know, the exhaustion and the anxiety would lift when I was away from campus. I did a lot of field research in Central and South America, and when I was there, I would feel great when I was kind of separated from the normal work environment. But then when I would return back to campus, to Brown University, it was like everything would come back again. The anxiety, the exhaustion, the stress, even the physical symptoms that stress was prompting to appear in my body would all just come roaring back because I hadn't really learned how to deal with any of it. And, honestly, like eventually I broke. And it wasn't until I got support and started shifting the way that I approached work and I approached my life and I approached my relationships, both in my mindset and in my actions, that things really started to change for the better and change for good. And that is because burnout is complex. Recovery isn't just about checking off items on a self-care list or resting, right? If anyone tells you that to just rest or take a bubble bath, they have no idea what they're talking about. I hear this all the time, like somebody going to HR, to talk about burnout, and they're, given the advice of take 2 weeks off, take a long weekend to relax. It doesn't work like that. Burnout recovery is about, regulating your body's stress response. That's your nervous system, rewiring your patterns and your mindsets, and honestly, in my opinion, redefining what success looks like on your own terms, not on somebody else's. It's about reconnecting with yourself at a really, really deep level. And this kind of work is really hard to do on your own when your brain and your body are already just so fried. So when you can get support, everything just becomes so much easier and so much faster. So for example, with my private clients, when we work together, we start with a deep assessment of their life, their health, and their goals. We get crystal clear on what success and what their vision of life beyond burnout would look like, which is usually kind of difficult to figure out on your own. Then together we create a personalized action plan based on my holistic approach to burnout recovery that includes 3 main elements. One is that you need to refuel your energy, especially at a physiological level, with self-care that includes nutrition, sleep, and easy movement. We can't really do anything else if we are completely physically depleted. So we have to build up a little bit of energy first. The second thing we work on is restoring your peace of mind with somatic and nervous system work, healthy boundaries, and learning how to manage your energy. So not just time management, energy management, attention management. And the third thing that we do is work on reigniting your spirit with whatever it is that brings you pure joy And we work on helping you take that scary action to realign your life and your career with your core values, with whatever is most important to you. And I can tell you that when it comes to burnout recovery, when you have support, when you're no longer doing it alone, you're still an independent woman. It's just that now you're one who has a solid plan and a path forward and accountability and encouragement. And you're not just throwing in the towel when things get tough. You've actually got someone to lean on to help move through those tough times, because there will always be some. By this point, you probably have a pretty good idea of whether or not now is the time to ask for some support to help you get out of the burnout cycle for good. And my guess is the answer is probably yes. So if you'd like to know a little bit more about how I can support you, I'm dropping a couple links in the video description below. And if you found this video valuable, please hit the like button and hit subscribe. I've got a lot more content on this YouTube channel to help you with different aspects of the burnout recovery process. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for joining me.